everyone, I have with me a very young couple, Riya and Rohan Desai, who are going to be parents as well very soon, and they conducted the miraculous task of getting married in a budget. So guys, thank you so much for joining me on The Money Show, and of course, congratulations on your impending parenthood. So first up, when did you guys get married?
We got married 2.5 years ago in March 2017.
And walk us through the functions that you all had during your wedding.
So we both love dancing, so we had a cocktail, which was a point we made sure everyone danced. So it was Sangeet as well as a cocktail. We had a reception which we wanted to be a limited reception along with the fairas, and we had a couple of ceremonies which we just booked a very smaller venue. We divided the crowd. Her family was with her at the venue and my side of the family was in that. So the venue was smaller, and so in about totally we had about 4 functions.
So guys, who decided, or rather how did you all decide that you want to do your marriage in a budget?
To be honest, it was our idea, because we were dating also for 4 years before we decided to get married, and along with our relationship we always spoke about how we are going to manage the finances, and both of us were independent enough to convince our parents as well. We come from completely different societies. I'm a Gujarati, she's a Parsi. They have a different tradition, we have different traditions. Gujaratis are supposed to be loud, but we always made sure that our families understand what we really want to do, and we had other plans with the money that we would want our parents to spend on, instead of a marriage which according to us was a social gathering, which could just be a social gathering and not a extravagant affair. I think we both managed to do that role very well.
Now, convincing the parents in a city like Mumbai is still relatively an easier task when you have to compare it to budgeting your wedding in a city like Mumbai. So how did you all go about doing that?
More than the amount, what helped us to budget the wedding was the number of people we wanted at the wedding, and at the same point of time the number of functions we wanted. So because we both from a different set of communities, the families actually spent the time to make sure the other family is not hurt. So what we could use that to advantage was to have those small ceremonies, but either at our house or a friend's house. So that way a lot of real estate cost was saved for smaller functions, and when it came to bigger function, we had put our number of people to a certain 100 people. Beyond that, we did not want to extend the invitations to.
What I'm trying to understand is, how did you all come to a budget? I mean, was there a fixed budget you all decided?
Oh yeah, I think after you worked for close to combined 10 years, you realize what is the amount you want to spend on a social gathering, as I said, and that's how we decided that figure, and then we did the reverse calculations, and that meant that if at this venue we could only have so many people, and it turned out well.
I think what also helped was we had obviously one of the things is both of us love to dance, but we also have been to so many friends' weddings and we've seen the extravagance of Sangeets, and we're also very practical people. Like, one of the first things I remember when we were dating, one of the things that we talked about was, instead of doing all of these things, let's just put money together and maybe in 5 years we'll go on a trip. And we've always talked about those sorts of things being fun for us. So as inherently as everyone expected us to have a Sangeet, it was one of the first things we talked about and said, unfortunately we're not going to have a traditional Sangeet, but we said that there are a few things we'll definitely do that are us in the wedding. And what helped also is when we identified that, okay, the Parsi side might need X or this sort of a puja, and his family might need something else. What helped was we identified, okay, what are the functions that are absolutely going to be in common together. Those were the ones where both, because our parents were involved in those, so they did sit and, like he said, put down a number of guests, and then we decided, okay, for these many guests this sort of hall makes sense, and we'd have decisions based on that.
When you get married and when you're having a wedding, there are several parts, right? I mean, you have venue, you have catering, etc. So which was the part that actually did squeeze the most out of your wallet?
Restricting the guest list.
Really? Of all the things, really? Not even a venue?
Yeah, because to be honest, I have lived, I spent about 10 years abroad after school, so the majority of my network or crowd or stuff wasn't here, and and at these weddings the majority of it is your family and your parents' connections, and it's these people called us to their wedding, so we have to call them for this. And I think that was to be honest and say, like, compared to everything else, that part created friction also among us, because we had to sometimes be spokespeople on behalf of our parents, and we had to have those discussions and make sure no one felt hurt. And a lot of times, it was out of our hands, because it wasn't even our friends a lot of it. You know, it was extended and the second level and third level and business associates and who do you call, not call. So I would say that was probably the toughest part for me.
We were also very matured to realize that if we were invited by someone a couple of years back and it's not been the same, we were very mature to make sure they're not part of the guest list. So that helped us to restrict our guest list, because as she said that she had a bigger circle of friends abroad. So our families, we were very grateful that they realized that the larger part of the audience should be from our friends, and they took their list as the second preference, which really helped us to restrict the number of and what we also did a little smartly was the timings of the functions. So we made sure instead of having lunch and dinner, we did with a high tea and dinner, so that, you know, in a bigger scheme of things, just helped to save cost.
Okay, so I think your parents as well were very accepting, and you
completely. We would not be able
So
to.
where did you all require hardcore negotiation skills then? I mean, was it like, there are various aspects where you have to
Oh yeah, so I'll get into the fun part of it. So we took the fun part in our hands, right? So being the cocktail and even the photography. Every couple would acknowledge today that a large part of money spent on the photographs, right? Both of us, fortunately, are not so camera crazy. So we like, you know what, it's going to be a special moment for us, whether we take it on a fancy camera or a regular camera. So we had a friend who had offered, she was a professional photographer and offered to be there, but for some reason they could not make it. So around a month before the wedding, we got to know that, oh wow, we have to look for someone. Otherwise, it was getting taken care of. It was taken care of, you know, not part of expenses. So we did a very smart thing. We went to Facebook and we just put it on the networking group that, hey, we are getting married, we need photographers. So we got some 100 inquiry that, oh, I could do this, friends of friends. And we actually got a range, the bottom range and the highest range. Highest range was said no, bottom range no. So we actually found a comfortable mid-range. We actually met guys who just started out as a hobby. So sort of our wedding was a launching pad for those guys. So we could negotiate on pretty much on our terms. And instead of just signing up for one function, we'd like throw a bid that we have 4 small functions as well. Take this package and give us the whole thing. And he was a young photographer who eventually realized that this guy's also no fuss. And he actually gave us a very, very good deal. Like, we were very happy with him.
Were the photographs good?
Photographs were very good.
Very good.
He got extra people on the day of the wedding. 3 weeks ago, we called him to come for our baby shower, because, you know, we had such a great time with him, and he showed a lot of willingness. So again, you know, that relationship.
Booked him for the child's first birthday.
That relationship got built there. Another thing was, I think, for me, one of the expectations probably was makeup, clothes, jewelry, all of that as another big thing. I've always been a very conscious spender in terms of, like, you know, fashion. I think even when I was growing up in Bombay, I went much more to Colaba Causeway and Fashion Street compared to like actual stores. So I've always had that mentality. I've also been...
Honest confession, I can say this, her outfit plus jewelry was yet cheaper what I spent, and I didn't even wear a fancy suit.
It was. But no, I think that was one thing that I've always, you know, I've been lucky enough, both through my mom, my parents are architects, good sense of design and stuff. I was always able to find things that were not very expensive. So I knew those were not areas I wanted to spend on. For my actual wedding outfit, things that we had a budget for, I went and actually found material in Bhuleshwar market, and then found designs that I liked and just got it done by a tailor. The material was super rich. It looked like something that you would have got somewhere. So those were areas that I saved on. And again, makeup, in a way, it's not something that I wanted to spend a lot of money on. And at that point, about 2 years ago, Urban Clap had really come up. So the thing is, I did have to start a little earlier than probably he started some of his preparations, because I knew I wanted to test out a few people. Just did a couple of trials, found a really good person, and no one could tell the difference. And I think that's one thing that, you know, if you really know what you want, you can get someone even with a basic skill set to do it well. So for me, those were 2 really big things where I didn't want to stress. I knew I didn't want to spend that much on. So I was pretty comfortable with what we ended up on. For one of my functions, actually, you know, now we've told friends, but at that point I had told him, but a fly robe had come out, and I found a couple of outfits that I said, I wanted to rent because it was for a haldi mehndi function in the afternoon. I knew after the wedding I was going to shift. I didn't want to buy things. I didn't know when I would wear it again. I found a beautiful dress, and I rented it. I had it for 3 days with me. Those are some of the best pictures I've had from my wedding.
So to summarize our conversation, I think you guys have busted the myth that metro city weddings are expensive affairs. But what tips would you like to give all our young couples out there who are looking to get married in 6-7 months perhaps, and do want to do their wedding in a budget as well? What tips would you like to give them?
So the myth is that a destination wedding is a cost saver. It is not. I think it's just a myth. You can actually be smart about selecting the venue because that's where a huge chunk of the finance is diverted at a wedding, and if done well, you get a good start. And yeah, you need to be a little smart about your wedding outfits, choose yours.
Riya, what about you? Anything you'd like to add?
I think the only thing, there are some people who love brands. There are some people for whom, it doesn't really matter. So I would say just pick the one thing that really matters to you, and it's okay to spend on that. For us, our cocktail party that we had was the highlight for us because it felt like the one function. So we spent and made sure that we had everyone over there, and then we saved in a lot of other areas. I think it totally is possible in a city like Bombay to find great deals. I think there's a lot of up and coming designers. There's a lot of wholesale that if you do a little bit of research, I think you can get stuff that looks high street, but not at those prices. So if that is something that's important to you, it's definitely possible. And I think the third is just know who's in your network. Like we mentioned, there's a lot of people who could probably get you a deal on food, on drinks, on a place, and it's in India, weddings are a community affair. So, as much as they're a family affair, bring your friends in, bring your network in. You never know where you can get a deal, and, it could help you save so you can spend somewhere else.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us then on this edition of Budget Wedding.